we're grateful that on the phone. And we do some prayer, then we'll have a pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for our time together this evening, and thank you that we get to gather freely without any concern or the government coming in trying to stop us this evening. I thank you that we live in a country where we can worship freely, where we can proclaim the name of Jesus. We just thank you so much for organizations like Florida Citizens Alliance that are doing so many good things in the state of Florida. We thank you for this country. We thank you for our president. And God bless America. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen.
If you all turn around, we have a flag. There's a little behind us. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I forget, before we go any further, all of you got at least one card like this. You came in. If you didn't, we have many more. We have enough ones. But what this is for is we have a question for our candidates tonight. That's why I want to get this right up front. We want your questions. We have moderators who have questions. Some of us have lots of questions. We want yours. So if you have any questions already written on the card, we have people that are going to come and select them right now. We can begin that process and we can make sure we get as many of your questions as possible. Not required, we're going to have the opportunity. So on your mark and set, go, give us your question. All right.
Get off the question.
For you to know that we sponsor these forums as a way to have civil conversations about the important issues of our time. There are ways people try to find out about it. We have discovered that this is one of the best. We just sit down, we give you a chance to ask questions, we give the candidates plenty of time to explain their positions on things, and we call them a forum. It's not a debate. All right? That's a little different. We just want to have a conversation and keep it on the high road. However, if the candidate happens to call the other candidate by name, we do give them a chance to respond. All right? But primarily, this is for each candidate to make their case and to answer your questions. Now, make sure you understand this is a nonpartisan affair. We have invited many candidates. You can see the name tags up here. We're glad a couple have accepted our invitation, some did not. But we invited Republicans, we invited Democrats, we invited many candidates that seem to have a viable path to the election. So that's why we're here tonight, is to give you that idea. We think you'll like some answers. We think you won't like others. But in the same way we ask the candidate to be civil, we're asking you to be civil. Now, you might have a bone or a crumb now and then, but let's keep it to that, okay? We have moderators, they're going to give us directions through the course of the event. Remember, we want your questions. You may think of a question, and at any moment, raise your hand, jump up and no, maybe not. But let us know, we'll collect your comments. So thank you for coming and welcome. This is going to be a great evening. I'm going to give you this microphone to the moderators, and they are going to lead us through an educational and informative and an interesting evening together.
Thank you, Councilor Stevens. My name is Ryan Kennedy. I'm the Chief of Operations here at the Florida Citizens Alliance FLC Action. And I have my other co-moderator. I'll let him introduce himself now and I'll explain the rules.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is R.C. Williams. I'm co-founder along with Juliana Ormond of Sherlock Research and Behavioral Marketing. Also Watchmen Action, a ministry focused on equipping the church to engage the culture. It's wonderful to be in civic dialogue tonight for a potential future governor of the state of Florida.
So the rules are as follows. Each candidate will get a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute closing. They will both get 2 minutes each to respond to your questions or to the questions we ask. And as Pastor Rick said, if a candidate on the stage is mentioned, they will get 30 seconds to respond. And we do reserve the right as moderators to ask for additional information if we need to with additional time if a question isn't answered. So that's just something I'll say up front. We hope to take a number of questions. Our rules are we try to do at least 50% of the questions from the audience. So, we will be asking your questions tonight.
So a note for the candidates and those in the audience, you'll notice that we have a timekeeper down front. So hello, timekeeper, can you raise up one of the cards? Great. So you'll see your timers. I believe that green is 1 minute. Is that correct?
Green is, you still
Green
have,
is you're good.
Yep. Yellow is 30
Yellow is 30 seconds and red is you're done. We ask for you to respect those times. We will cut you off if you go over.
Okay. So first, I'm going to go based on alphabetical order. So, Mr. James Fishback, you have your chance to do your opening.
Thank you very much, Ryan, RC, Speaker Winner. Thank you so much for coming this evening. This is a race that is not about different men. It's about two different, radically different visions that our state can go. I'm going to tell you up front right now, if Ron DeSantis could run for a third term, I would not be on this stage because Ron DeSantis is the greatest governor in Florida. Maybe speak for both Speaker Renner and I when we say the next governor of this state must preserve the incredible conservative wins that Ron DeSantis, the First Lady, gives us. You have to preserve those wins, and when we do that, you can then begin to build on that. What do we mean by build on those wins? Well, we actually mean quite the opposite. We mean stop the irresponsible, reckless building and development. Florida is full. Since COVID, Florida has welcomed 800,000 people from all over the country. Housing inflation, housing shortages, skyrocketing property tax, property insurance, auto insurance, HOA, condominiums, your light bill, everything is out of this world expensive. And the trajectory, it's not going to get any better. From AI data centers taking your water and your electric bill, to H-1Bs, cheap foreign labor from India and China taking your job, your kid's job, or your grandkid's job. The threats are real. It is now time for a leader to step up. A leader to step up in the same way that our founding fathers stepped up 250 years ago and said 3 words: enough is enough. I am running to be the next governor of Florida as a 4th-generation Floridian because I believe that Florida is our home. America is our birthright. And no one should ever be able to steal that from us. Thank you very much.
Speaker Renner. Thank you. I remember 2018 looking at the election results and not knowing on the stance, Governor Andrew Yellow. And so why that matters is we have to have someone who's ready for leadership on day one. And so the reason why I should be your next governor is a lifetime of leadership under pressure, 20 years in the military. I served in 2 wars, leading men and women to defend our country. As a prosecutor, trying habitual and violent habitual offenders, as an owner of a business, partner in another business, and also as someone who's shown up and actually delivered results. We have too many politicians, including Republicans, who get into office and all they do is they self-promote, they get rich, they have fun, and they forget about we, the people, and they need to come home. We do not need to give them a opportunity. Additionally, someone who has a bold vision, because I have a vision to be prepared. We have plans online to eliminate homestead property taxes, to say a hard no to any AI data centers in the state. To push back against the red and green threat of China and Islam in our state and not let it get foothold on the street. We have plans for health, freedom, and wellness, to stop sex trafficking. And finally, it comes down to who shows up to fight for left who they raised today. Whether that was pool races in 22 and 24, not the governor's job description, not mine, but I participated, contributed money we had raised into that and made sure that we got the wokeness out of our schools. We put common sense conservatives in charge of our school districts. And additionally, Amendment 3 and 4, out-of-state millionaires who want to jam their agenda into our state constitution, not going to happen by government. Again, not this governor's job description or mine, but I went out and traveled the state with this governor, wrote op-eds, raised and donated over $2 million, especially on Amendment 4, to stop abortion being a destination state here in Florida, to stop recreational pot. You need somebody who's going to show up and beat them whenever they come back, because they are coming back. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So we're going to ask the first question, and since Mr. Fishback started his opening, I'm going to go to Speaker Paul Renner first. Same question to both of you, but would you support legislation like the AI Bill of Rights in Florida if you're elected governor? And explain how, if you want changes to it, what you would like to improve. Yes, Speaker Renner.
Absolutely. It was shameful. So I left the Speaker of the House State Legislature in 2024. My successor has been a trainer, saying out in public. He shot down not only the Bill of Rights, but also the great freedom bill that was in front of the legislature last week in the special session. Did the same thing during the regular session. I like the Bill of Rights. Here's the difference, guys. This is why this is so important. If a parent faces a child who is depressed and suicidal, they can stop everything they're doing to make sure that never happens. That's same child asking AI. AI will give you 10 ways to take your own life. That's why this issue is so critically important. And as Speaker of the House, I fought against online pornography, against social media platforms. I understand the threat. I understand the big tech does not care about our children. I know how to bring the fight to them and beat them, because I've already done that once before. To add you to your question, Ryan, is yes, I think the bill can go farther. I want to see an opt-in for parents, not an opt-out, but an opt-in, and have to affirmatively decide if we want AI. I don't think AI should be involved in replacing our teachers or teaching our children in any way, shape, or form for the reasons I just mentioned. And also, I want to make sure that the data is anonymous. Social media steals, and without our knowledge and consent, our children's personal information. They cannot have that information. And that AI chat, again, I'm opposed to being in the first place, if it's going to happen, cannot come along with that child. AI can never be a substitute mom or dad, God, or oracle, because it is soulless, it has no moral agency, it has no moral compass. And so it's important that we protect ourselves from AI. And the fundamental thing is technology like everything else. Human beings have to be in control of the technology, not the technology in control of human beings, period.
Thank you, Speaker Renner. Mr. Fishback.
Well, thank you. We have to start with one universal truth, which is that parents raise their children, not the government, not teachers, not drag queen story hour, not ChatGPT. And so when we accept that, we have to, as I agree with Speaker Renner, there has to be an opt-in. If you're a 9 or 10-year-old and you want to join Claude, ChatGPT, or Grok, you have to get affirmative consent from your parents to be able to do that. Why is this such a big issue? Because as Speaker Renner touched on, there are already documented cases of young men and women developing relationships with their AI, relationships that say, I want to see you, I want to see you, kill yourself, here's how you can do it. This is real, this is not hypothetical. And so the internet, we saw the double-edged sword. The same internet that gave us Google Maps, that gave us Wikipedia, also gave us child pornography, also gave us a place for people to buy and sell drugs called silver. AI is no different. Clearly, there are benefits to AI. Clearly, there's a way for AI to superpower education to help tailor personal, individual education plans. But I am firmly on board with an AI Bill of Rights because children are our most precious things in this world. And we cannot let anything, whether it's a corporation or a nation, whether it's a tech billionaire or not, we must stand up to that. The best way to know that AI is a threat is that Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, the guy pushing AI on their kids, doesn't let his kids use AI. I'm going to get biblical for a second. Judge them by their fruits. That's what this is about. And when we look at those 10 commandments, and we say honor thy mother and father, it is a mom and a dad in the flesh, not an AI chatbot telling your child how to live. We said hell no to the drag queen and story hour. We said hell no to the guidance counselor trying to transition you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Speaker Renner, you touched on something in your answer that I want to continue. You mentioned that Speaker Perez and the gridlock. So I think many in this audience ended up very frustrated at the end of the last legislative session. It seems like almost nothing got done. Speaker Renner, I'll come to you first, then we'll go to Mr. Fishback. You step into the governor's office. How do we avoid having a session ever again like the one that we had this past year?
Well, first of all, I think that every candidate owes you an answer to that question. You have two here that have given you an answer. You have a conspicuous absence of candidates with the name tags that have no one seated at them. And I called for, if you want to lead the free state of Florida, you should tell parents and kids, do you wish to protect them from technology? Or are you going to be bought and paid for by that technology and do whatever they tell you to do? I think you're owed that, don't you? I'm disappointed that we don't have some of the other candidates here today, but to answer your question, RC, is as a military guy, whether you've been criticizing in private, praising in public, you bring these guys in, and I know the good news is like the English weather. If you don't like your speaker or your president, just wait a few hours, just wait a couple of years, and they'll change. And so this speaker will be out after this session, special session, another special session ends. And we'll have two other guys coming in, Sam Garrison and Jim Boyd, who I know well, and I believe I can work with well. And we're going to hit the ground running, coming out of the governor's race with a lot of political capital. We're going to hit the ground running. And, you know, those 2 years we had, the governor said we're unmatched in any legislative session in any state in America. I'm a conservative. I'm there to get the job done and put conservative wins on the board. And that's what we're going to do. And if we get the same response, then I will tell you, I will be coming to Naples and everywhere around the state to say it's time for one of you to step up and primary that incumbent, because we were not going to allow people again that get into office and all they think about is their next office. All they think about is self-promotion. All they think about is getting rich. All they think about is having fun, and they forget about the mission. You're there for a job. Do your job. And we see this year the difference that leadership makes when one speaker leaves and another speaker comes in. And so if it comes to that, I hope it doesn't come to that, I will first try to unite conservatives. We had a much more moderate member on the Senate side of things when I was speaker. You know her, she's from this area. And we had a decent relationship because I got a lot of conservative things done. There's some things that she wanted done. We worked with the governor and it all worked because we should not squander a supermajority in the legislature. We should be leading the country.
Thank you, Speaker Renner. Mr. Fishback, how do we stop the insanity that was the last session with gridlock? You step into the governor's office, how do we fix that?
Well, you step in and you do what President Reagan did best. You actually lead, yes, with a little bit of humor, yes, uniting your own party, but you also have to be willing to reach out a hand. You know, we say we have a supermajority in the Florida legislature. We're not seeing it if that's the kind of gridlock and infighting. We've got to get out of this mindset. We must disabuse ourselves of this notion that because someone says they're a Republican, they are our friend. Liz Cheney said she was a Republican and she backstabbed President Trump. So there are a lot of Republicans in Tallahassee who will say one thing to get elected, but do something entirely different. My job is to go in there as the Republican nominee, as the next governor, to build a coalition that works in common areas, but also calls people out. When there are egregious, hypocritical acts where Republicans said they were going to eliminate gun control, only to find out they won't do that when it comes to the floor of the legislature, they need to be called out mercilessly. And when they do come together, you have to praise them. On my way over here, I was in Boca last night and I stopped to visit the grave sites of my grandfather and my grandmother at Florida National Cemetery. And my grandmother always said, you've heard this, I'm sure, growing up, it's easier to attract bees with honey than with vinegar. Yes, I will call out mercilessly the backstabbing rhinos, but when Republicans and Democrats work together to deliver the common sense solutions that you send in Tallahassee to accomplish, I will praise them, even if they're not in my own party.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Fishback, I'm going to start with you first. These are from the audience. In the state of Florida, we have a great school choice program. In particular, we've had some questions here related to homeschooling, whether or not you support homeschooling in the state of Florida. And when it comes to the PEP program, scholarship program, how would you improve or change it? Starting with you first.
It is a great question. I look forward to meeting with the leadership of the Collier County School Board tomorrow. I'll be in the offices early to meet with them, as I've met with school board members all over the state, but I also met with homeschool parents, those who have decided to pull their children out of school, not necessarily because it's failing generally, but it may be failing their child specifically. They're neurodivergent, they're especially passionate about cooking or music or history, and they want to homeschool. And so there's two big changes that I would make to the already great program that Governor DeSantis and First Lady DeSantis has given our state. The first thing I would say is if you pull your kids out of Collier County Public Schools, and Collier County Public Schools was going to spend $13,000 per student per year, you should get the full $13,000. Every single penny. Look, I'm not a political guy. I don't have any political experience. I'm a business guy. If you were going to spend $13,000 over here and you don't use that service, you can come over here and get the full amount. That's how we deliver real equality of school choice. Number two is a real frustration I've heard from homeschool parents is the homeschool marketplace. You don't have laptops on there. You have delays. That's a real problem. So what I would do is I would broaden that marketplace. I would make it easier for parents to have access to the tools that they need to educate and to motivate their children at home. I completely, unequivocally support the homeschool movement. And that begins with recognizing that if you're going to spend money, if you're going to give a kid a laptop at Golden Gate or at Immokalee, you give that kid as a homeschool student the same money, the same resources. I'm a free market capitalist. The best kind of competition is when our public schools have to compete, our private schools have to compete. I would say Optima would have to compete, but it's closed, and our homeschool parents can compete as well. And so I am 100% in the school choice movement. I would say that I'm pro-choice, but I'll tell you, life begins at conception.
Well, thank you. One of the things you get to do as speaker when you leave the Florida House is set up certain priorities. And mine in the first year was HB1, which was the Universal School Choice Scholarship. So that started with yours truly, as did the PEP program. My question to my staff is, what about homeschool parents? Why can't we have something for them as well? And so the scholarship is basically the state portion of education funding. And what James described is that difference in some federal funding, local options, that our choice students do not receive. I do believe that the money should always follow the student, just like I believe in healthcare, the money should follow the patient. It's basic 101. And every business has an entrance and an exit, except for education. With the monopoly, we set up a Hotel California where you can enter, but you can never leave. And so with school choice now, every school also has an exit. If you do a good job, people hit the entrance. If you do a bad job, people can and should hit the exits. And so that has made our public schools have to compete more and do a better job. And it's allowed for every parent to decide the best choice for their students on how they get their education. And it goes its own level. You can be a homeschool kid and go 1 day a week to a charter school or a traditional public school in physics if you want. That's the beauty of school choice. It was my #1 priority in year 1 in HB1 as Speaker of the House, and we are not only going to protect it, but continue to expand it. And it is making our education better. It's making all levels better, and we're going to continue down that path.
Thank you, Speaker Renner. Thank you, gentlemen. We're getting great questions from the audience. If you have them, make sure you have a piece of paper and let's get those in. Some great questions here tonight. So one from the audience from both of you. Mr. Fishback, I'll come to you first. If data centers are allowed in Florida, do you pledge to require them to produce their own electric power and water and not use the Floridians' resources? Mr. Fishback, you first, please.
Thank you. I'm a business guy, so everything I look at is through the lens of risk and reward. I'd be lying to you if I said there were not a reward to an AI data center. The number one reward is you'll be able to generate that photo of Donald Trump in a bikini 5 seconds quicker. The risks to AI data centers are bigger than whether or not they generate their own electricity. The 500 acres that in Fort Meade in southern Polk County is now going to an AI data center that can't be used for citrus, it can't be used for cattle, it can't be used to build a rural hospital to serve the 5,000 residents. And so I am a heck no on AI data centers across the board. I don't care if they have a nuclear power plant. I don't care. Now let's talk about how we accomplish that, and first why we should. An AI data center can use upwards of 500,000 gallons of water. Not every month, not every week, every single day. Speaker Renner knows this. We are living through the worst drought here in Florida in 26 years. Now is the worst time to be talking about these new sucking AI data centers. Your electric bills, those are going to go up more. Simple supply and demand. When more electricity demand comes onto the grid, we pay for it as a result. I say no to welfare queens who want lobster and steak on their food stamps, and I say no to Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg trying to have us pay for their electric bills. And allow me to explain the how. How do we accomplish this? How do we do it if there are county commissions all over the state that are tripping over themselves to approve these AI data centers? How do we accomplish it? We have to do what's called a state preemption. We have to preempt all of the authority for AI data centers away from greedy county commissions who will do anything for a quick buck and a Rolex, bring it to Tallahassee, and put in place an indefinite moratorium on AI data centers in every single Florida county.
Thank you, Mr. Fishback. Speaker Renner, what do you think?
I'm a hard no on AI data centers, and it will absolutely raise your electric bills. And as was just discussed, we had a historic drought, and they're going to come in and put a big pipe in the ground and suck out our aquifer. I don't think so. And so one of the candidates in this race, however, has said that Florida should lead in the construction of AI data centers. And I'm sorry that he's not here to get his 30 seconds, but he's also said that we have enough pristine land to use. Personally, I think that pristine land should stay pristine use. How about that? When I was leading the legislature, we championed the Florida Wildlife Corridor, Everglades restoration, Springs restoration. I'm running a Florida First campaign, and that means all I care about is the people who have made their living and made their home here. And we are not going to let big tech come bum rush us to bring in these data centers that will absolutely, if you think we have an affordability problem now, it'll be my day one priority to bring down taxes, insurance, electric bills. We are not going to let AI data centers come in and jeopardize that, and they will absolutely do that. In Louisiana, there's a facility that literally draws more power than the entire city of New Orleans. And so depending on who you ask, it's the equivalent of 600,000, 800,000 people in one hyperscale center, like the one that's proposed in Fort Meade. I will just say this, under my watch, Florida is not for sale. There's a big choice in this election. It's not from anybody on the stage. If we want to go the direction and do the bidding of big tech at the expense of everyone in this room, of every Florida citizen, or if we're going to stand up for Florida first and make sure that we return Florida to the affordable state it used to be so that people can grow up, the young people on the front row can grow up and have the same great state that I grew up in, and I'm committed to you to make sure that happens.
So there were a few things brought up there, and I want to start with this. Many families and individuals are concerned about affordability and high costs in Florida. What will you as governor do to help these families? Mr. Paul Renner, Speaker Renner, you're first.
On affordability generally?
Affordability generally, yes.
Sure. So again, you need a vision, and every candidate owes you something in writing. So we put out our property tax proposal, which will eliminate homestead property taxes. We also eliminate taxes for small mom and pop businesses. We give some help to renters. And again, for first-time home buyers, not your first time you've owned 3 houses in New York, but you've never owned a home, you're a Florida resident. The replacement taxes we have to make up for some of that along with savings are zero for first-time home buyers. So they will not pay that additional tax. They'll come in, pay no property taxes. Every 95% of Floridians at $1 million or below will not pay any property taxes going forward, period, full stop. So we'll take care of property taxes. We'll make sure to reduce insurance rates. In the speaker, we had bold reforms to lower auto rates, and also save our insurance market from collapse. We went after the trial lawyers. We went after the insurance companies. We said, how about we focus on the consumers? How about we focus on we the people to bring down costs and also hold our insurers accountable? I'll take that same mission focus and delivering results into continuing to bring down insurance, temporarily repealing the tax on homeowners insurance, My Safe Florida Home, which is home hardening programs, which can lower insurance by $1,000, and also some regulatory reform that can lower our insurance by 5 to 10% in year one. We're also going to bring down electric rates, and I'll be talking about this tomorrow in a roundtable, but suffice to say that our utilities are pursuing the green new scam of these huge solar farms, if you've seen them all over taking up our farmland, which is not the lowest possible cost to deliver electricity to your home. It's not domestically sourced, because who are we relying on for those panels? China. And for the batteries, China. And it's not reliable, because we see when we have a cold snap or a heat wave, the power goes off. And so we have to have electricity that is U.S. produced, reliable, and the lowest possible cost to you. That's 3 areas where we'll bring down cost. And again, part of that is not doing the wrong things by bringing in AI data centers.
When we think about affordability, we should have a 3-part test. How does life feel affordable? We're not asking about the vibe, we're not asking about your personal feelings. We want to make a 3-part objective test. Here we go. The first is, how many 30-year-olds are married and own their home? My dad was growing up in the 1960s in Fort Lauderdale. Half of 30-year-olds were married and owned their home. Today, that's less than 15%. That is a crisis. We have to make it easier for our young men and women to find God, to get married, and to have kids. Number 2, is life affordable? Here's the question. Can you still raise a family on a single income? My parents did. My parents did. Now you would have to search all day to find a single person who could raise their kids on a single income. We have to make it affordable, yes, by tackling the root cause, which is high prices, but also make it easier for the man who works or the woman who works in the household to be able to get a great paying job. Quite literally, everything is unaffordable if you lose your job because it was given to a cheap foreign laborer from India or China. That's why I will end the H-1B scam once and for all. And then last, can our seniors afford to retire with dignity? I don't want our seniors to stare at the ceiling before they go to bed, wondering how they're going to pay their property tax, property insurance, auto insurance, HOA bill. We have to get to the bottom of it. And Speaker Renner touched on it. But the biggest scandal in the property tax space is that in the last 5 years, total statewide property tax revenue, the amount of money they're stealing from us in the last 5 years is up $20 billion. We don't need to roll back spending. We don't need to roll back spending to the 1990s. We need to roll back spending simply to 2020. And if we do that, we can eliminate property taxes for every single homesteaded residence in our state. That's all you have to do, and the math works out.
Thank you, Mr. Kristoff. Gentlemen, my question is probably going to resonate with most people in this room because we're living it. My wife and I live outside of Orlando. This is an infrastructure question. and the sprawl of endless Cracker Jack box apartments showing up everywhere. When I left San Francisco in 2014, this is the exact thing that I got away from because I know what comes afterwards. In a state that grows and that is abundant, how do we balance the need for infrastructure while respecting the rights of the people who are already here? Mr. Fishback, I'll come to you first.
Florida is the best state in the country, but it cannot remain the best if the people who made it the best can no longer afford to live here. We are losing our way of life. Buy citrus groves, buy cattle ranchers, and welcome the 7th Dollar General to your zip code and whatever the heck a Five Below is. Bring another self-service car wash, a mini storage unit, or heaven forbid an AI data center. What are we doing here? My favorite president, Ronald Reagan, said, now is a time for choosing. I want to be very honest with you. If you want GDP, if you want investment to go up, 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 as it has over the last 10 years, an 85% increase in GDP, this is your guy right here, Byron Donalds. He wants to accelerate the development, accelerate the GDP of Florida. I'm not going to worship GDP. What I am going to focus on is preserving our way of life, creating great paying jobs. And you know what? That might mean saying no to a new urban development project. That might mean saying no to a massive Section 8 style housing development. That might mean saying no to tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. My favorite economist is Thomas Sowell, and he said that politics is not It's not about solutions. There is no one-size-fits-all solution that's going to make every single person happy. But politics is about trade-offs. Here is your choice. Do you want to preserve the Florida that we know and love for your kids and mine? Or do we want to make Mark Zuckerberg, George Soros, and Bill Gates rich? Do we want to preserve the Everglades, protect and expand the wildlife corridor, be able to tell our kids that they can still see a Florida panther out on 75 or on the drive up to Immokalee? Or do we want to make Lennar GL Homes in Blackstone rich? The choice is yours to make on August 18th, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Mr. Fishback, thank you. Speaker Renner, same question. What do we do about infrastructure?
How many people are familiar with the book, A Land Remembered? Well, this election is about whether we continue A Land Remembered or, as was pointed out for Congressman Donald, A Land Forgotten. Because we have to make sure we put Florida first, and that means we can catch fish and eat the fish we catch. It means we don't develop our state parks. It means we take care of our natural resources. It means, I joke, if I could, I would build a wall and make Georgia pay for it. But of course we can't do that. But what we do in the property tax proposal is there's one group that pays a little bit more. And that's the way it should be. We're shifting that tax burden away from all the people in this audience who think they're living in their home in Florida toward out-of-state investors, out-of-state private equity who have purchased over 100,000 homes, single-family homes, and turned them into rentals. Now what's wrong with that? Well, two things. Number one is all that money is being paid by Floridians and not a dollar drops into Collier County or any other county in the state. It's all sent out of our state. But the bigger problem is that's over 100,000 homes that none of you guys can ever buy. It artificially drives up the price of homes. So yes, those people will pay more under my property tax proposal. And that money that we have that goes into local governments and also our state government, we will invest in infrastructure, which I think your question was about. Because what we need in our leaders, and I did this when I was speaker, is start making investments today in a terminal world. I support terminals, but make investments today in our water supply, water quality, water treatment, our roads and bridges, our Everglades, our springs, our natural resources that you will never get credit for. That will make sure that this state is in a good spot 20, 30 years from now when I'm in a recliner and my young kids are grown. I want to be able to look back and be proud that as governor, as your governor, I focused on Florida first and not what we could get with the wrong decision, which is who in the world was in charge that let this happen.
Thank you. We have a few questions here about, and we touched on homeschooling, but about public schools. So What would you do to improve or reform the current education system here in Florida? And would you, and I'm going to lump this together, would you support, as one of these measures, reforming the school grading system to a roll class system over a 3-year period, which means raising the scores to reflect an A is 90% in the school district? Thank you. I'm going to start with Mr. Fishback first.
If we can sum up the crisis in our public schools in one word, it is the crisis of accountability. The teacher who indoctrinates your child, who says that Thomas Jefferson is a racist and Cardi B is a role model, the one who spends more time talking about microaggressions and microbiology, only to find out that they are failing your son or daughter at a public school, they need to be fired. That is called accountability. As Jeb Bush would say, please clap. But here's the thing. My grandmother is a public school teacher. My own sister is a public school teacher. Most public school teachers that I know wake up early, stay late, dig into their own pockets to cover lunch money or school supplies for their students. In the world of business, the world that I come from, when someone does a good job, you want to incentivize them to stay. And the way you do it is by paying them more. Florida ranks dead last, 50 out of 50 nationwide in public school teacher pay. We don't want to pay the Marxist who's trying to indoctrinate your kid with Howard Zinn more, but we want to pay the teachers, the AP chemistry teacher at Golden Gate who shows up with fun, creative ways to teach students how to balance equations. We want to teach the AP US history teacher at Immokalee High School who makes history fun. We want to pay them more. One, they deserve it, but more importantly, your child, your grandchild deserves a great school. What makes our schools great, it's not the building, sure as heck not the solar panels on top of the building. It is the teachers. The #1 driver of in-school performance is the teacher. The #1 driver of a student performance out of school is the parent. The way we make public schools excellent is we pay our teachers more, we tie their bonuses to 3 things: test scores, parental evaluations, and student evaluations. You do well, you get paid more. And the way you succeed as a teacher is you bring parents back into the classroom. You help them help their children be the best versions of themselves.
We want to see that everyone has a world-class education no matter where you go. My mom was a public school teacher. I went through public schools. That's all I ever went to. There wasn't no charter schools really, even private, didn't go to private schools. But that's your choice as a mom or dad as to where to send your children. As I mentioned before, I was the guy who championed universal school choice in education here in the state of Florida with HB1 that included for the first time homeschool parents. And of course, if you want to be a traditional homeschool parent, you don't want to take any government money, that's okay too. As a governor, we're going to protect your right as inviolate, because again, parents have the primary role to raise and educate their children. It will always be that way when I'm governor. We have to continue to get the indoctrination out of our schools. It has not gone away. When I was Speaker of the House, we ended DEI programs in our universities, but guess what happened? So we defunded that, we got rid of them, we said it's illegal, you can't have it. So what do? They changed the name, they just burrow down deeper. We had, when I was on the board of governors, we had a guy who was interviewing for the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Florida, and the interviewee, the person he was looking to hire, said, listen, we're violating the law, we're doing everything, we're breaking the law that Trump wants, we're breaking the law that DeSantis wants, what will you do to help us? That was the question on whether they would get a job at the University of Florida. And so it's going to require someone, and I know where the bodies are buried on education, because I spent a lot of time working on not only the K-12 but also the higher ed. And we're going to go after those guys, and if they can't just simply teach reading, math, science, civics in K-12, make a high school diploma matter again, then they need to be shown the door. And we do need to affirm our public school teachers. We did $1 billion in teacher salary increases during my time as Speaker, but they do need more. They do need to have better pay. But we have to ask of them to focus on educational outcomes. We have almost 40%, over 40% of our students who do not read on grade level in the 3rd grade. That is morally unacceptable. And so we went in to do the science of reading, teach phonics, make sure we have a reading scholarship to advance that, because if you can't read by the third grade, you flatline, and your ability to get to where you need to go in high school and beyond is very, very compromised. So we have to be focused on this issue. I was a speaker, I will be better.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, next question. So, if there is a change in partying in 2028, I'm trying to be as PC as I possibly can. What will you do to preserve states' rights as governor? Speaker Renner, I'd like to come to you first.
Well, as an attorney, I believe in the Constitution and the 9th and 10th Amendment, and I've said on the radio that I don't care who's in office, if it's a violation of our state's rights, we will give the 9th and 10th Amendment a CrossFit workout every week by filing suit and asserting our rights as a state to control our destiny. As I think most people that are educated in this room, because this is an educated bunch, know, the federal government has long ago outstripped its limited enumerated powers under the Constitution. And we need to push back against that with a new Supreme Court, both at the state level and at the U.S. level, and challenge that. And we've done that in the State House when I was Speaker, along with the governor, on a number of different things. We said, look, if you rape a child, you can receive the death penalty. Now, right now, and I believe in that, right now, that is unconstitutional under old Supreme Court precedent, but we're going to challenge that. And we did that, so that's already happened. The Miller test on online pornography, I was very strong in challenging some of these horrible books that are being put in kids' classrooms that are way over the top. And the default position of some of the school boards had been, oh, well, it has literary merit. Wait a minute, an adult sodomizing a child has a literary merit in elementary school? I don't think so. And so challenging the Miller test, which set that standard out, which should not apply in the case of children in school, is something we should do. We should pass a bill that we know that is currently unconstitutional under old, bad Supreme Court precedent, and let the new U.S. Supreme Court, with President Trump's appointments, is a much, much better court. It's not perfect, but it's much better than it used to be. Challenge those, and again, we'll give them a CrossFit workout, by which I mean we're going to take cases up, we're going to challenge that. The same thing when it comes to Islam. I've been very clear that we're going to stop, I want to see a stop to all Muslim immigration. I want to challenge things in court when it comes to our Universal Schools Choice Scholarship. We're not sending that money to people that are teaching Sharia law concepts, and they're going to sue us under the First Amendment. But I don't believe that is a religious freedom issue, because this is a secular system that seeks to dominate every aspect of our society and force us to assimilate to their worldview, but you have to have the courage to bring that lawsuit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have to remember that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. Whether it was Joe Biden or, heaven forbid, Gavin Newsom in 2028, we have to remember that the governor of Florida is that last line of defense between more encroachment. Speaker Renner started off by saying that we got very close to a Governor Andrew Gillum. Speaker, I can tell you how close we got, precisely the width of Andrew Gillum's crack pipe. And so we have to remember that we can be so close to losing it all. Jefferson said it best. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. When the federal government tries to mandate vaccines, lockdowns, churches like this one from shutting out parishioners for Sunday service or a funeral, we have to stand up to that. Now, we have to, of course, stand up to the crazy Democrats when they do it. But you also need a Republican who will stand up to his own party when they try to push mandates on us from the federal government. I am a 10th Amendment absolutist. The 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says that if it's not explicitly enumerated for the federal government, it is reserved for the states and her people. That is our job to defend. And so if Washington, D.C. bureaucrats want to strip our rights away from regulating AI or data centers, we're going to see them in court. If they want to try to supersede our right to abolish abortion, we are going to see them in court. If they want to push offshore drilling in the Gulf of America, we will see them in court. And guess what? We will win because President Trump gave us a strong conservative bench. Now, how much we will win, I don't know. It'll either be a 5-4 or a 6-3 speaker, depending on how she is feeling that day.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be a more lighthearted one. What guides your moral compass, and what will guide your moral compass as governor if you get elected? What guides your moral compass? What thing or person? What guides your moral compass if you get elected as governor? What's going to be that? Mr. Speaker.
Well, listen, as a Christian, I don't think you can do anything other than guide your entire life. And it gives me a true north, and it makes political decisions for me. I think one of the reasons we were successful is making decisions that send other conservatives, running for cover has never been hard for me. Because if you know the truth and you act on it, it's really quite easy. There's nothing, it doesn't matter about controversy, and maybe I was built for it, but that stuff doesn't bother me. If the media's attacking me, if people are losing their minds, the liberals of TikTok are losing their minds, I'm over the target. And so I don't mind that at all, and so my faith guides me in really every aspect of life. I'm a conservative. That's not a conservative on economic issues only, or cultural issues only, or family issues only. It's across the board. And it really is about what works. And fundamentally, we know as Christians that there is a capital T truth. There is a certain way that if you believe in a designer, which I do, that we're created as I do, things work in a certain way, and if you don't follow the user manual, they don't work. And we see a culture, I said again to this pastors group today, you don't have to speculate what a world without God looks like. You can see it now in our culture. It has names like Jeffrey Epstein. It has names, and Charlie Kirk, before he died, mentioned that, and when I heard him, that every pagan culture, before there was any kind of communication or people could sail across and talk to each other, all these different areas across the globe had one thing in common, is the sacrifice of children. And you see today what happens in a world without God, and children in our youth are under constant attack, whether it's online pornography, social media, now AI that takes it up an order of magnitude. And I don't think you'll find anybody who's been in public office who's done more to defend childhood and protect children than I have. And I will continue to do that as a father of a 5 and a 4-year-old. If you hurt a child in the state of Florida, you will wish you never came here.
Thank you, Speaker Rivers. Mr. Bishop, could you restate the question, please?
What one thing guides your moral compass?
Jesus Christ.
Mr. Fishback's already ready for office. He ceded his time back. Well done. Next question, gentlemen. Speaker Renner, I'll come back to you first. What's the one policy you have not spoken about publicly before?
What policy have I not spoken about?
Yeah. What's one that's going to come up in this? What's something you haven't spoken about publicly before?
Spoken publicly, maybe. I posted the other day, if you saw this viral video of the two dads and they're bouncing the baby and the baby's calling for his mother. I'm not okay with that. So I think, we have a crisis in this country, across the world, where we have fathers that have abandoned their families. And I'm the first guy to stand up and say that men need to do their job and look after their sons and daughters, period. The last thing we need to do, and in the same way, kids need a mom. And so to consciously allow for surrogacy where two men are adopting a child, that is about their own satisfaction, their own enjoyment, their own fulfillment. It is not about the child. We have to return to a world in which it's about the child. It's not about our convenience. It's about investing in them. As a Christian parent, it means my daughter and son is teaching them the gospel, teaching them the importance, how to be a good citizen, how to love each other, how to walk through this world, again, understanding what it's all about, what their purpose is here. And so to have children be commoditized in this fashion is unacceptable. I've not spoken about it, but I've posted about it, and I think that needs to end.
Thank you, Mr. Member. Mr. Fishback, same question for you.
one policy you haven't spoken about publicly before that you'd like to share?
Well, my problem is I speak too much publicly and I get myself in trouble. But I share Speaker Renner's frustration with the surrogacy problem. That's why, as governor, I would ban surrogacy in the state of Florida. A woman's womb is not for sale. But I will talk about something that is top of mind for a lot of people, not just those in our own party, but those all over the state of Florida, and that is the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators. What George Orwell wrote in 1984, that their last and most essential command was to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. We have all read the disgusting horrors in the Epstein files. That's why, as governor, I will work with my cabinet to appoint a special prosecutor to reopen the Epstein investigations here in Florida. This man stood against Thomas Massey, stood against a patriot, refused to sign the discharge position, refused to bring real justice transparency to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. That is not okay. It is disqualifying. We talk a lot about Epstein's island in the Caribbean, but Epstein had an even more prolific island where he committed those heinous, disgraceful, wicked, and vile crimes. That island is right here in our state, the island of Palm Beach. Speaker Renner will know that criminal sexual battery in our state, already on the books, does not have a statute of limitations. That means, like murder, whether it happened 20 or 30 years ago is irrelevant. We can still bring charges today. Oh, and by the way, criminal sexual battery is punishable by the death penalty. I will sign those death warrants proudly to execute the individuals who trafficked those young girls with Jeffrey Epstein. Thank you.
Recently, during the special session, another one of the bills that was held up dealt with medical freedom. In particular, one of the most controversial parts of that medical freedom bill is the vaccine mandate portion. Will you champion, as governor, amending the current law related to medical vaccine mandates to allow for more parental rights in that area? Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, let me just bootstrap on what was just said, is that we passed that bill to put the death penalty on the rape of a child when I was Speaker. When I'm governor, we will also, right now the law is if you traffic a child under 12, you can receive the death penalty. What about a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old? And so you can see on our voterenter.com website, we have a policy, or again, a written policy to end sex trafficking in our state. As horrible as Jeffrey Epstein is, it's happening right now in the state. A lot of those people are minors. A lot of those victims are minors. That we're going to make sure to impose the death penalty on them, give the adequate funding, because it's significantly underfunded, where real girls and boys are being groomed as we speak, and there are not enough investigators to get after it, and we will go after those networks. As to vaccine mandates, again, I also have a bold vision and a written policy, you can see it on our website, for health, freedom, and wellness. That includes an end to vaccine mandates, that includes supporting alternative medicine, that includes a farm to cafeteria program to work with our farmers. Again, we're going to make sure that we're taking care of old Florida and taking care of nutrition. We want to know what's in our food, and I want to make sure that we also put the cell phones down for a minute. If you remember, those of us that have some gray hair, we had a presidential physical fitness test. Remember that? Sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups. I'm going to create a governor's physical fitness test when I'm governor and make sure that we're getting kids on the playground and become resilient and take care of all these things. So health freedom is about vaccine mandates, but it's also about a lot of other things in our food and taking care to make sure we live long lives of wellness. And there's a lot more ground to be covered here. What I've learned in the course of my work on social media is that a lot of these big corporations that you would hope really care about us just care about monetizing us. And this is true where we had 10 or 11 vaccines, and now it's like 70, 80. And so we've got to get after that and make sure people, parents, and pediatricians should have that conversation. not the pediatrician and the CDC. Thank you.
Well, Speaker Renner, if you do that governor's fitness test, then I really need to win because I just had 2 Costco hot dogs on the way here. There's no way I'm gonna pass that.
I had a Five Guys hot dog, so there's confessions have been made.
Mine was cheaper, $1.50, baby. Look, this guy, he'll raise the price of the Costco hot dog to $9 and pocket the difference. But in all seriousness, one of the gravest crimes against humanity was the lie that the COVID vaccine was safe and effective. It's a very simple check on someone's independent free thinking. Did you take the mRNA vaccine, yes or no? He took it, I didn't, and I will never let them force that poison down you or your kids' throats. But here's the thing. We need medical freedom. In the same way you can't deny someone access to your restaurant, to your concert hall, or to your doctor's office on the basis of their race, of their sex, or their religion, you should not ever be able to deny someone access on the basis of their vaccine status. As governor, I'll get that job done. But there is one exception to this rule, because we've all seen the science, we've seen the studies from Harvard to Stanford. The COVID vaccine is poison. The rates of myocarditis and pericarditis in young men in particular, the incidence of young men suffering heart attacks 40 to 50 times the normal rate. As governor, I will pull the COVID vaccine from the market.
Thank you, gentlemen. I want to take a minute and acknowledge the fact that we have so many young people in the room. There is a generational shift that is happening. This question is around governance. Speaker Renner, I'll come to you first. Given the young people who are enthusiastic in the room and across the state, who are becoming more engaged civically, how will you govern as we move through a generational shift of leadership should you take office?
Well, look, I think it's exciting, and again, I'll go back to Charlie Kirk, who said that the generation, Gen Z generation, younger generation, is the most conservative generation in our history, in his view, and that's a very, very good thing for the future of our country. And so it's about making sure, in my estimation, that we restore hope where there's not any hope, that we make sure that the American dream should be just as alive for you as it was for me. I bought a home when I was in my 20s with not a lot of money. And so I have, in our property tax proposal, strong incentives to make sure we prioritize first-time home ownership for everybody in this room who's never had the benefit and the privilege of owning a home, first and foremost. It means protecting your jobs. I am in the same boat when it comes to H-1B visas. They should be paused altogether, gotten rid of altogether. Now that's a federal thing, but what I can do as governor is there will be no state employees that have H-1Bs. There will be no state contracts. If you have a state contract, you cannot have an H-1B worker. We're going to make sure that Florida jobs are for Florida residents. When it comes to higher education, I'm on record saying we're going to keep in-state tuition steady because we have one of the best deals in America when it comes to a public education, where some out-of-state students pay more, they would pay more in-state in their state than they do out-of-state coming into Florida. And I think that probably ought to go up a little bit to help protect our local folks, but holding in-state tuition steady and continuing down the path to make sure that we have to look at our college degrees as you go through. And I'll give you this example. One of my supporters, his daughter started in graphic design as a freshman. By the time she graduated, AI had taken over and that degree was then worthless. We cannot allow that to happen. We have to be better at getting after and in real time changing that degree so it's worth something when you graduate. And we're failing young people in that regard too. And so Much like Ronald Reagan, who was an older guy who was president of the United States, he had a great following among young people. And I'm a father of a 5- and 4-year-old. I care a lot about the next generation. If it's not real for you, then that is morally unacceptable. And true leaders will step up for the next generation and make sure that you guys have the same opportunities that I've had.
Thank you, Speaker Renner. Mr. Fishback, same question to you. Obviously, we have a very engaged younger generation in the room. As the generations shift and we move to younger leadership, how are you going to govern?
This is not the exception. This is the norm. Thomas Jefferson was 33 at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. James Madison was 25. Alexander Hamilton was 21. Young men built this country. Young men can save this country. Let me acknowledge the fact, and I say it with humility, that our campaign is crisscrossing the state. They said we were an online campaign until we showed up at Waffle House with 300 people. We've since been banned. And then we crowded FAU with 800 people. We have visited 61 of our 67 counties because we are meeting young, old, black, white, it doesn't matter. We're meeting people, Floridians, Americans, face to face. A new poll just came out yesterday that says that if Byron Donalds is our Republican nominee, he will lose the general to David Jolly. If I am given the honor of being your Republican nominee, that poll says I'll beat David Jolly by 5 points and keep Florida in conservative hands. And you only need to look around this room to know why I beat Jolly and this guy loses. Because I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to take the tough questions. Not right now. I'm willing to take, I know you're interrupting, but not right now. Okay. Well, let me just be honest with you just for a moment. Byron Donalds, you're a DEI hire because you want to be governor, but you didn't earn it. You're not willing to talk to these people and take questions. Speaker Renner lives 6 hours from here. I live 8 hours from here. You live 10 miles up the street. What's your excuse?
Final question, and I think this one I saved for last because this is telling. What would you do in your first 24 hours in office as governor? What would be the first thing you do? Mr. Fishback.
The first thing that I would do, very, very first thing that I would do, is I would deploy the Florida National Guard to remove illegal homeless encampments from our streets. No one should be living on the street, shooting heroin into a needle, sleeping in urine or excrement, and no one in this room should have to step over them on their way to church, on their way to pick up their car, or on the way simply to a walk on the beach. The homeless crisis is out of control. In Naples, in Fort Myers, in Orlando, even in DeLand, Jacksonville, it doesn't matter. We've got people living on the street. Yes, the law, it makes it illegal, but if we're not willing to enforce the law, then nothing changes. You know, burning down a police station in the summer of 2020 to honor George Floyd is illegal, but nobody went to prison. Shooting people on the streets of San Francisco is illegal, but nobody ever goes to prison. So if people can live on the streets and make our lives unsafe, but we don't do anything about it, we tolerate that behavior. We tolerate it, and we have victims like Rita Longrick, 74 years old, from Martin County. She went down to Palm Beach County 3 days before Christmas last year, walked into a Barnes & Noble to buy Christmas gifts, and she was stabbed to death by a 40-year-old homeless man who came down from Georgia. If you're not safe in a Barnes & Noble, you're not safe anywhere. I would use my constitutional authority to deploy the Florida National Guard to remove illegal homeless encampments from our streets so they can get the care that they need and we can get the safety that we deserve.
What is the first thing in the first 24 hours you do as governor?
So I will call a special session to enact our agenda to lower the cost of living and make Florida affordable again. That means eliminating homestead property taxes. That means reducing insurance costs. That means reversing the perverse incentives that the electrical companies use to overcharge you for your electric bills. And it means ending any chance for AI data centers to be built in the state of Florida. That's my day one priority, and it will continue for 8 years because we've got a long road to travel together to make sure that also the young people in the front row have an opportunity, not in their late 40s, but in their 20s, to buy a home and to have that American dream. That will be my day one priority when I'm governor, and a lot of other stuff that you guys are going to like.
Now we're moving into closing remarks. Since we started with Mr. Fishback first, we're going to start with Speaker Renner first on closing remarks.
So we are at a pivotal crossroads, and with a Republican state, it's time for discernment, it's time for common sense to sniff out the campaign conservatives from the true believers. And I do believe, and it's been referenced tonight, some of the people who didn't choose to show up here, even though they live here, we cannot go backwards. What I love about the governor is he's always leaned forward, he's always fought the left wherever they raise their head. And there's one guy in this room, in this race, that has done the same, and you're looking at him. Over 20 years in the military, as a prosecutor and as Speaker of the House, I've had a lifetime of leadership under pressure and delivered results. I've put forth a bold vision for the future of this state, and I've shown up with courage and beaten them wherever they've raised their heads. That's what we need in the next governor. We need somebody who's got the proven leadership, the mission-centered focus, who's delivered results, and when I'm governor, we will continue to protect and expand the free state of Florida. I know because I was a key architect in building it. God bless you.
Mr. Fishback.
I want to be clear. I don't want to set false expectations. I don't want to catfish any of you. I have zero political experience. What I bring is business experience. My investment firm, Zoria, deployed $40 million of capital just last year alone, investing in companies that were doing the crazy thing, which was not using DEI to discriminate against white Christian men, but hiring people on their skill and merit. I was a high school debater. My first ever high school debate tournament was at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in October of 2009. High school debate changed my life, but then it went woke, and it became very expensive for kids like me to be able to do it. So I started a free high school debate league that now serves students in 52 of our 67 counties, 5,000 students every single year. When the fentanyl epidemic was happening and young kids were being poisoned at the hands of counterfeit pills, I didn't write in for an op-ed. I started NEO, a no-cost assembly for public schools where we partnered with Broward County, Duval County, and Nassau County to teach young people, to educate them about the poison that is fentanyl, to help them avoid addiction and overdose. I'm not political. I have been a Republican since the day I signed up to vote. I'm a fourth generation Floridian, born and raised in Broward County. My dad drove the city bus for a decade. His dad, my grandpa, was a World War II vet who taught at Florida Atlantic University. His dad, my great-grandfather, was a World War I vet who ran a small hotel on Fort Lauderdale Beach. I bring to this race the passion of a fourth generation Floridian, a vision that says that Florida should be kept the way she is, and the unapologetic devotion to our Christian faith, the power of Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do as I say? The most important thing for me is to have principles. People say that a lot. Where are your principles? Principles. Well, the question is, where do your principles come from? For me, they come from two places and two places only: the U.S. Constitution and the gospel of Jesus Christ.